All right, so Emma, how was your weekend?
My weekend was okay. I spent a lot of time applying for jobs, and so that was sort of a an exhausting way to spend my time, but it felt good. I was productive, and I always feel good when I can be productive. And I also got to spend some time with a friend. We drove out to Columbus, and so we had a chance to actually do something together for the first time in a while. And that felt nice as well. So, overall, I would say it was a pretty positive weekend for me.
Right. It's good to know that your weekend was interesting. And, did you reflect on the exercise that we did last week?
Uh,
Submitted to me.
yeah, I was actually just talking about it recently because I was talking about with someone how it's been nice to have structured time where I'm supposed to be reflecting and thinking about the future. And so I was talking about this activity and how interesting it was. Because the first couple weeks of this semester, I think it was really hard for me to think about goals for the future because I didn't really think that I had many things that I still wanted to do. But this activity really pushed me to think about uh, different types of goals that I have, and most of them are not related to my professional life. And so that was, I think, a good experience for me to sort of realize that I do have goals I can be working towards right now.
Right. Um, Talking about profession, when I read the goals that you stated, you talked about teaching in a class in college or university. Do
Mhm.
you do you have any specific interest, like interest area?
Probably not like an academic subject. I could see myself teaching academic courses someday, but I really just want to have the experience of continuing to teach first year experience type classes and classes where students learn about their transition to college because I've really enjoyed that. That's part of my assistantship and that's my favorite part. So I hope that I can do that professionally as well. Like I have done it professionally now, but I hope that I can continue to do that.
Good. So, do you see your advising skills like playing a role in this choice of being like an instructor for this experiential learning and transition?
Yeah, I think that the reason why I'm especially interested in teaching is because I've found that with advising, I really struggle with the part of the job that is just meeting with students like once a semester or maybe twice a semester because it doesn't feel like a lot of opportunity to get to know people. And
Mhm.
so when I am teaching a class and I get to see the same students every week, that gives me a little bit more fulfillment because I'm still kind of serving in that helper role and having a lot of the same kinds of conversations that I'd like to be having in advising, but they end up being just a lot more fulfilling because I get to know the students that I am talking with.
Great. That's interesting to know. I mean, since we began this coaching exercise, you've always talked about your like dream of you having to pursue that advising career. But when I saw the aspect of you teaching as well, I just wanted to know how that reflects and that aligns with you maybe teaching a class in college. But
Yeah, I don't feel super committed to advising in particular. I just know that that is an avenue for me to like get the kind of fulfilling career I want, but teaching for sure gives me a lot more joy than advising by itself.
that's good. That's good. So as I was reading your document, I came across you having a goal of learning a third language.
Hmm.
Yeah. So is it towards your professional life or your social life?
It's mostly just for my personal enjoyment. I've already studied actually a lot of languages, but not to the point of being conversational. And so right now, I would say that I am proficient in English and maybe like one or two other languages, but I've studied probably like six or seven altogether, and it just is fun. It feels like a puzzle, and I enjoy the cultural aspect of learning languages too. I like learning about different ways of perceiving the world and interpreting the world. And like that's what my undergraduate degree is in linguistics, and thinking critically about language is really exciting for me. So that's something that I just want to continue doing, continue studying languages so that I can keep engaging with that interest and maybe maybe use it professionally. I know that there are opportunities domestically where I could use another language. I know that I'm still potentially interested in opportunities for teaching English as a second language, and having additional language skills can be useful for that. So it could serve a professional purpose, but it's mostly just because I like it and I think it's fun.
Great, great. Um, as I sit here, I know only of three languages. Two
Mhm,
are local, and the major one I know is English, which is
mhm,
international. I learned a lot about French, but I wasn't fluent in it. I can write some small things. Yeah. So I
mhm.
think languages are really good, and it makes you explore a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
hmm So developing your design plan for your tiny home, as you
Yes.
yeah. It's so interesting. Like when I read about that, it gives me like, wow, like how I just want to know more about how you envision you designing it. But when you talked about the obstacle of not having the ability to design a tiny home because maybe you might not have that expertise in that background, and you talked about your plan of like reading some posts and watching some videos to learn about how to do it. Like, do you have any other plan, like any other option that comes in mind when you think about you planning your home and how to design it?
So yeah, this is a goal that I have that is not super structured for me at this point. So this was a way for me to try to start formalizing it a little bit. Um, I I love the idea of living in a tiny home, or like turning a van into a mobile home. And I think that I want to do those things. I want to do one or both of those things, but it seems like a really big task to take on, and I don't have like the mental energy to even conceptualize how big it's going to be. And so for now, I mostly or like up until this point, it's mostly been just like something that I think is fun, but I'm not really making progress towards. But I think that like wherever I go next, I want to start saving for that, and I want to start figuring out how much it's going to cost me. And so that's sort of like the first step, is like coming up with a design so that I can figure out the costs.
hmm
And I know that I'm going to have to do a lot more intentional looking, because right now I'm mostly just watching tours of homes for inspiration, which is still helpful, but like not really in a practical sense, I guess. So that's just sort of where I'm at with that one. I know that I want to do it, but I haven't taken very concrete steps towards it yet.
So would you maybe pursue a course in that area to get to know of it?
Yeah, if I could find some kind of class, or like some kind of, I'm sure that there's like a video series online that would walk me through how to do it. At this point, I feel like, I don't know, I need to find something that is really aimed toward beginners and people who are just in like the very beginning stages, because I know that I could find a bunch of videos about like, how do you install plumbing in a tiny home? How do you do this or that? And like, those are things that I would need to know eventually, but for now, I need to know how to design it, and I haven't taken the time yet to look for those resources. So that's sort of my first step.
Okay, great. I mean, like it's kind of unfolding how this can be achieved, and I think even reading and watching a lot of videos will let you know how the basics will be, and you'll master on that, and that will be possible. That's great to know. But
Yeah,
um,
it's interesting trying to turn it from an abstract goal into a concrete goal. And it's also one of those things where I thought Oh, I'll just figure that out later, but I can do a lot to plan for it now, and I sort of realized that. So I was like, maybe I should start that.
So, talking about the two goals, like expatiating on it, on the wish, the outcome, obstacle, and plan. Um, did you base on anything to choose those two, about the home and living a vegan lifestyle?
I picked those ones just because they felt like they were a bigger reach for me. The other goals that I listed of like learning a language or teaching a class or like fostering a cat, those seemed like smaller things or things that I'm already sort of on track to do or I have the resources for them. So there aren't necessarily a ton of obstacles once I like have more of the time and practical resources for them. But these two were things that I thought about. Like they're things that I keep saying like, "Oh, someday in the future I'll get around to those things," but I've not really taken the time to really think about like when and how would I make that happen. So that was sort of how I decided on those ones.
I really admire your interest and your love for the environment. But aside from your mini home, what are you practicing like currently that you think reflects your love for the environment?
Honestly, not a lot, which really disappoints me. And that's why those goals especially like seemed exciting to me. I think that um like I always try to be really conscious about the amount of waste that I'm producing in my home or like being sure that I'm recycling and doing kinds of things like that. I've been thinking a lot more about how to cut down like one of my goals like in life is to travel a lot, but I know that that is something that has like a negative impact on the environment. I guess like I'm already a vegetarian and so like I make dietary choices that align with that. But in terms of like other lifestyle things, I feel like I haven't necessarily had as many outlets for that and I forget how important that is to me and how much I want to sort of be creative in how I live a sustainable life because I want to be more into like making my own cleaning supplies or like rather than putting things in the recycling bin, figuring out a way that I can personally like reuse them and turn them into something else or like I'd love to get to the point it's harder to do in Athens, but I would love to not rely on a car and I would love to spend more time like biking places or taking the bus. Um, and I feel like and I also really like the idea of composting and a lot of those things are just not as accessible to me in my current living situation. So that has been a challenge for me and sometimes frustrating because I tried I've tried to like buy locally a lot more and I can do that to some extent, but sometimes I have to spend money on something with Amazon or I have to like get something shipped from further away. And so that's a lot of words, but but mostly it's just been yeah, it's been hard that I haven't been able to engage with that value since I moved to Ohio.
Yeah, it's actually good in a way because I believe in small beginnings, right? So with the little things that you do, you might not know the impact that it's having on people. You might not know the benefits that people are gaining from the little things that you're doing. So just keep up with the good work. And you also mentioned um, family in your document. I wanted to know, like, when you say family, do you think about the extended family, the nuclear family, or the friends that have turned into family?
Oh, so like my question about in 10 years.
Yes.
Yeah, so I asked the question of what family might mean and what it might look like for me. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that it's sort of twofold because I have a very small family. It's mostly just my mom, my two brothers, my dad, who I don't really have a relationship with, and some grandparents and a few aunts and uncles. But it's very, very small, like altogether, maybe only like 15 people in my family. And so, especially over the last few years, um, I haven't had a very close relationship with a lot of my family, and that includes like my brothers because I've moved to different states and haven't really talked with them. My dad and I had a big falling out, and so we don't really talk anymore. And so I feel like I've lost a little bit of the sense of family that I had with those people who are like directly related to me. And I've always sort of wondered, like in the future, what my own version of family is going to look like. Especially because I think about like that's something that I really am looking for in like a romantic partner is someone who I can call my family and whose family becomes my own. And so that was just kind of where that thought was going of like who's going to be in that really close support network. And some of my friends, I consider them to be like as close to family as you can be. So like I know I'll have those people, but I'm more curious about like the other people that I will collect in my circle and the way that my relationship with my related family might evolve over time.
Great, great, interesting. Um, that is really intriguing. Like, in as much as the family is small, I believe the most important thing is that you have people that support you in every time, in every step of the way. And that is kind of very interesting to know about. So I think that will be all for today. But do you have any key takeaways from today's session?
I think I just want to continue reflecting more on engaging with that value of the environment. I've been doing that a lot more lately, but I want to number one recognize and give myself credit for the things I am doing, and I also want to make more goals for what I can be doing to engage further with that value.
Great. Thank you very much, Emma.
Yeah.